Hi everyone. Today I just wanted to basically just talk a little bit about a few albums that I've really been enjoying lately. So this video is kind of just an excuse for that, but I do think that there's an interesting theme between these albums that I wanted to discuss that I think is an important topic to cover with industrial, and that is the idea of rhythmic industrial. Sometimes it's also known as like tribal industrial or ritual ambient industrial. If we look at something like a chart here that somebody made for like post-ritualist feels or ritual ambient as it's sometimes known, it's kind of more in line with dark ambient albums that have a lot of like heavy drum samples and stuff that makes it feel like, oh, you're at a ritual maybe. Definitely a bit hard to put in objective terms. It's definitely something you listen to and it kind of makes you feel that way. So that's what falls into this category. But again, these albums I want to share, they're kind of more of a traditional rhythm or repeating pattern or something that catches you and gets stuck in your head and can really just kind of hypnotize you, if that makes sense. That's what I think good rhythm can do, and I think that's what these albums can do. When it comes to industrial music, maybe the term rhythmic is not the first thing that comes to your mind, and if it does, you're probably imagining music from labels such as Ant Zen, a German label that is very much well known for having tons of albums that fall into this rhythmic noise category. There's a decent description of it that's on discogs, and it reads, "Rhythmic noise is a form of industrial music and a fusion of noise with various styles of electronic dance music. Rhythmic noise, aka power noise, should not be confused with power electronics, which is not influenced by electronic dance music and is closer to harsh noise. Its origins are predominantly European." I'll link this down below in the video description so you can check it out for yourself. I think one of the best notable examples of rhythmic noise, and actually the artist that I discovered Ant Zen through, is PLA or PAL. Really excellent stuff. I would highly recommend it. Check out any of his albums, really. Pretty much encompasses what people think of when they think of rhythmic noise. But yeah, without further ado, again, I kind of just wanted to talk about these albums, and I think they all are just they show different ways of how industrial can approach this so-called rhythmic sound in their own ways. But yeah, these albums are very good, and I like them, so just an excuse to talk about them, so let's go. So the first album I want to share with you today is the 1998 album by Dagda Mor, and the album is called Agent Provocateur. Provocateur? I don't know. Provocateer, that's what we're doing with. And this comes out from the legendary Tesco Organization label. And if you don't know, Tesco Organization is, again, a legendary label from Germany that puts out some of the most phenomenal and influential power electronics. Just pure, raw, brilliant, angry, yelling German power electronics. If you are interested in getting into that genre, you really can't do wrong than Tesco Organization. So most of the time you can assume anything from them is going to be pretty excellent, especially if you're already really into the genre. Now, to be fair, this is the only album I really listened to of this artist, but I really, really enjoy it, and I think this is a phenomenal industrial album, rhythmic or not. I think you should totally check this out. It really has an atmosphere that encompasses 90s dark ambient industrial rhythmic sound that not a lot of albums do. From the very first track, Filled with Hatred, you already kind of get a sense of what this album's going to be about. This has that quiet reverb vocals that are really pushed down and the pulsating synth. It really goes in between being minimal and just a wall of sound, which I think makes for a really good texture difference in a lot of these tracks. So you kind of don't get stuck listening to the same thing over and over. The second track really showcases what I'm talking about with the rhythmic qualities of this album. This is where you start getting the lo-fi voices and these weird kind of sounds or samples that sound like machines that are crunching and crushing, but they keep repeating in this pattern that becomes really nice to listen to, and it forms into a rhythm. And it's kind of a slow burn for some of these tracks, how it forms into a rhythm. You might not notice it at first, but then it keeps repeating and repeating and kind of hypnotizing you, and you realize that yes, this whole album has a good rhythm to it with these intense machine sounds. I feel like they're crushing you. This album is definitely the sound of exploring an abandoned factory. If you've ever been like urban exploration, any little sound, any little pebble drop, anything all the way in distance kind of makes a huge echo of sound around you and a bigger impact than it should. And that's kind of how this album is. You hear something all the way down the hall, like someone hit a pipe or something, and then it repeats back to you through the resonance of the hallway. You know, and someone left a radio on and it's doing weird, creepy medical talk in the other room. That's what this album is, and it's fantastic. And of course, the title track, Agent Provocateer, this is like a pure old school style sounding industrial track. It's got these metal sounds. It's totally just kind of almost danceable, like almost like a dark techno track. It's really great. There's this weird whoosh sample that comes through the whole track, really loud from like one side to the other. And again, it kind of feels like someone broke a window in this abandoned factory. Really excellent track. And the second to last track, which I might have a hard time pronouncing, is that Sturmruf, is an absolutely beautiful dark ambient piece. This track alone I'll put on repeat. It's a really fantastic here, and I think at the very least you should listen to this in the title track if you're going to check this album out. But I think most fans who watch my channel will find something to enjoy with this album. But yeah, that is Dagda Mor with Agent Provocateur.
You have 20 seconds to comply.
Alright, now moving on from German industrial to Swedish industrial, we have kind of a hidden gem within the genre. This is an artist called Omala, and the album is Germ. And of course, the album came out in 1988. This album comes from a very small label called Frequent Frenzy, which is a Swedish label that I admittedly do not know a lot about. But if this album is any indicator, this is another label that I need to deep dive into, because this is an excellent album. Now, I had first discovered this album actually reading a zine, and I apologize because I don't quite remember which zine it was and who wrote the article, but they had said that this album was incredibly underrated and that more people needed to know about it. So I took it upon myself to, as soon as I can, check it out, and I'm glad I did because that person was correct. This is an incredible album. This is an album by artists Omala is a group by Andreas Karprid and Matthias Tegner. I apologize. Which is interesting too, because Andreas had actually worked on another project called He Said Omala, and this project was with the artist Graham Lewis of Wire and Dome fame, which is a very interesting tidbit. I'm always interested when stuff from kind of the more underground, as it were, kind of reaches more into the mainstream. I mean, if you consider Wire and Dome more mainstream. But yes, this is a very excellent album, and it kind of touches on that ritualistic dark ambient, a little bit of post-punk, old school industrial vocals, and old school industrial sound. Right from the beginning, the first track, Theme from Cockroaches, it already starts with samples of people howling in the distance and whispers, and you have the nice drum repeating sounds. A lot of the rhythm on this album doesn't necessarily come from like synths, which a lot of industrial records do. It's definitely on these drum sounds, these really, really intense drum sounds. They got all different kinds of drums in different tracks. Some are really big, some are little. I wish I knew drums better so I could explain to you, but you'll have to listen for yourself. Then there's tracks like Smell, Touch, Taste that has those classic kind of post-punk vocals. just raw emotion and energy, and borderline spoken word at points. This track too kind of almost reminds me of a Coil track, to be honest. The way it goes from an old school industrial sound to more kind of ethereal synthy sound, it's really excellent. And I think if you like older side Coil, you will enjoy this album. The second to last track, War, really brings in this rhythm. It's got lots of synths and chanting. It almost sounds like there's big taiko drums getting pounded with this. And it really does sound like a group of people that are getting ready to charge into war. A really great track. And then this album also ends with an incredible dark ambient piece. The track He Who Hath. And again, this is one I actually listen to on repeat all the time. Absolutely ethereal. It is just, how do I even explain it? It's just a wonderful dark ambient track that has these weird whispers coming through. It reminds me of just that feeling you get when you're watching like super late twilight, like the sunset going through like the windows in a house, and you're just dozing off. I don't know, it's really serene and beautiful, and I highly recommend listening to it. I love it so much. And I think it suits this album too. It's just a really excellent album, and I think everybody should check it out. That is Omala Germ. Alright, now for the final album that I'm going to discuss today. And this is probably maybe the more well-known artist and album, and that is Orfix with Fragmentation. And this is a 1996 album that I believe originally came out on Malignant Records. And Malignant Records, legendary label, wonderful stuff. God, I believe they started in like 1994. And Malignant Records is a really good place to start if you are just getting into this genre as a whole. I think they have a really good range of albums that are just loud and industrial enough to kind of slowly edge you into the harder-hearted stuff. And most of it's just really good anyway. So if you're kind of just dipping your toe into the scene, I think Malignant Records is a really good label to start with. Now for Orfx, they go pretty hard. And admittedly, I only just recently kind of got into them, or this album. For years and years, I had their album, or their tape, Obsession in Progress, and I'd listened to it, and that album is very lo-fi, very kind of minimal industrial. It's good, but it was never something that really drew my attention. I would once in a while come back to it, and then I decided, you know what? You know, they are on Hospital Records. Again, another phenomenal, great label you should check out. I'm gonna check them out. So I listened to their album, Fragmentation, and oh man. Just like the other two, really. You just listen to certain albums, and right away, you're like, wow, this is an album. This is excellent. Yeah. This is pure rhythmic noise industrial, a little bit different than stuff you'll find on Antsen. I wanted to talk about it because I think there's a lot of tracks on this record that the rhythm comes just from all the layers they have and the wall of sound and the way it hits you. It's just really excellent. There's a big listing of tracks on this record, but ones that stand out to me that you have to check out that really encompass what I'm talking about are tracks like Autoerotic. This one has tons and tons of layers of noise, and there's this intense mechanical clanging in the background that slowly repeats, and it just creates this repeating noise in the background. All the other stuff is changing, and you're just being assaulted of all these layers, and it creates this really pleasant rhythm. Even though it's super maximalist, it's excellent. And then tracks like Sepsis, This has more mechanical samples that also repeat and pulse, and you just really get this wonderful sound like you're being crushed alive by machines. And then another track that I listen to all the time on repeat now from this album is the track Pathogenesis. And again, this is it. If you're going to check out one track from this album, I suggest this one, but you should listen to the whole album. But this one, this is so loud, so crushing, so noisy, so pounding and circular, and this is it. I think if you are talking about a rhythmic industrial track that maybe doesn't so much rely on even drum samples or synth samples, but just on its pure noise, this would be it. I wish I had a little bit more to say, but I kind of just wanted to mention a little bit about these albums and, you know, have you check them out for yourselves, just suggest them, because these are some records that I don't see a lot of people talk about. I like this idea of discussing albums belonging to a genre that they may not be the first thought that comes to someone's mind when they think of the genre, like rhythmic noise, but do not get me wrong, these records are very rhythmic. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this. This is a bit more of kind of an off the cuff, like a semi-script, I just kind of have notes going off, so, you know, let me know what you think. I just thought I wanted to get there. Like I said, really, I just wanted to talk about these albums, so I made up this whole excuse to just discuss them, you know, rhythm and all that. But yeah, please check them out, and, you know, I hope to make more of these, you know, videos in the future where I just talk about records I like without any kind of specific topic to it, really. Because that's what my channel is all about, to get you to listen to this junk. But I hope everyone is well, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.